Hello, everyone, and welcome to another ranking video here on the Cycling Dane channel. As always, I'm joined by Mr. Critical himself, Ewan, and today, of course, we're going to look back at the 76th edition of the Vuelta a España. Of course, we did a video ranking the teams beforehand, so now we're basically just going to go back and do the same things. Of course, we have a few different criteria, and they're very similar to what we had in the Tour de France video. But Ewan, how is it going to work anyways? For anyone who has
we have 5 different categories, starting with legendary. That is, if they completed all their goals and they had a mythical Vuelta a España, all the way down to were they even here? Yes, those silent teams who are starting on the start line, but we didn't really see much of them throughout this 3 weeks around Spain. So this is where we're going to place each team on this grid, and we'll try to give a little opinion about each single one of them.
So without further ado, we'll start with Team Qhubeka NextHash. And Ewan, where do you think they, would go? The big narrative, of course, was that Fabio Aru, he was coming here for his last Vuelta a España, last professional race as well. Of course, he has won the Vuelta before, but yeah, didn't really live up to those heights yet again.
Well, talking about Qhubeka NextHash, Aru stole the headlines. Apart from that, we didn't see much of them. I remember Berthiaume Lindemann being in a breakaway with Magnus Cort almost getting there to the line. But if you're looking at that GC race, Fabio Aru came in a humble 51st. So it wasn't exactly the comeback that we were all hoping for. And to be quite honest, I would say, were they even here? They really failed to light this up, especially given the pretty solid Giro d'Italia they had earlier this year.
Yeah, well, I can't really disagree with you there. So first team done. But anyways, cracking through this, next we come to the Tour de France winners of this year. And they came with a very exciting team. They had one of the key helpers for Tadej Pogačar, Rafa Majka in the team. David de la Cruz, of course, a former top 10 finisher in the Vuelta a España. Joe Dombrowski took a stage early on. And also the multi-champion of Africa, Ryan Gibbons, just to mention a few, and not to leave out Matteo Trentin. But Ewan, this was a team that you were very excited about. You said they were going to be very attacking, and attacking they certainly were.
Yeah, it was really exciting to see UAE over this 3 weeks, especially given that there was no Pogačar here. But De La Cruz got a top 10, Rafa Majka got a stage win. They had multiple top 5s across the board. I'm stuck between high achievers or satisfied, though, because given that we're used to seeing Pogačar and Christoph and Gaviria with them, they've done very, very well without them.
Yeah, I think they would be satisfied because that's probably what they were going for anyway. So next, moving on to a team that we probably didn't see that much of. That is Burgos-BH. Of course, the headline, you would say, kind of, if you are a Daniel Navarro fan, as I am. Daniel Navarro, of course, 38 years young. And they also had Angel Madrazo, a former stage winner of the Vuelta a España. But Ewan, how would you rate their performance? We did kind of say they were going to be one of these teams that were just going to be cannon fodder, and it seems like they haven't really achieved much other than that.
I think we should go for were they even here for this one. We had low expectations and they matched low expectations.
So next, moving on to one of the big narratives of this year's Vuelta a España. And of course, if you watched our 7 things we learned about the Vuelta a España, the headline there was that Fabio Jakobsen, of course, returned from his Tour of Poland crash, to a Grand Tour, and managed to not only win stages, but also take the green jersey. And Ewan, what would you say for Deceuninck-Quick Step?
Well, they came into this with Jakobsen looking to get a good result in the sprint stages. They won 3 sprint stages, I believe, and also that stage with Florian Sénéchal. They provided a solid lead out with Stibar, Bert van Leeuwenberg and Sénéchal. Bajoli wore the white jersey for a number of days, almost took some stages as well on the way. I'd say high achievers. Their GC battle kind of fell through with Von Savenant and James Knox, but they've certainly come and succeeded well.
Yeah, I totally agree on you on that front. And great to see Fabio Jakobsen back winning stages and potentially back to his best, we hope. But nevertheless, one team that we were hoping a lot for in terms of GC with Hugh Carthy, of course, last year, the podium finisher, surprise podium finisher, you would say, and also Angleroo stage winner, EF Education-Nippo came again with the Preston man. But this time it was another rider who stole the headlines for the American team. And Yeah, Bornholm in Denmark was certainly very proud of Magnus Cort Nielsen, who seemed to almost be a threat on most terrains here.
Yeah, Magnus Cort had an absolutely fantastic race, 3-stage wins on 3 very different terrains. In terms of GC, well, they were almost empty. We didn't see many of their climbers up there towards the front. That was quite disappointing. And I think Magnus Cort and Jens Kukeleda, that tandem on those sprint stages, really kept EF in the headlines. Are they high achievers though? I would say 3 stages is very accomplished for them. Probably more stages than they would have hoped for coming into this.
So do you think their GC ambitions weigh well? Yeah. What do you think?
This is a difficult one because yeah, they of course didn't quite work out in GC, but I would bite the bullet and say high achievers for the 3 stages because most teams didn't get 3 stages.
That's very true. And of course, Magnus Cort Nielsen almost took the time trial stage as well, if it wasn't for a certain Slovenian. But speaking of that certain Slovenian, 100% record at the Vuelta España in his career. First rider since Robert Heras to win 3 in a row. And yeah, could potentially take a 4th next year. But Primoz Roglic and Jumbo-Visma are the next team. And yeah, not much more to say than legendary. Of course, Sepp Kuss finishing in the top 10 as well. Kruijswijk up there as well. Just absolutely formidable riding from them. But as you pointed out as well in the 7 lessons video, was that this was probably the weakest team and strongest Primoz we saw.
100%, but Jumbo-Visma certainly deserve legendary. However, for a legendary narrative and drama, there's no team better than Astana-Premier Tech. Well, although Aramburu got a 2nd place on stage 1, where were they? Where were Astana for these 3 weeks? We didn't see them. It's the first time in a long time they've left a year without a Grand Tour stage victory. Their future is up in the air, and I would say this is very much room for improvement.
I totally agree. I was expecting a lot more from Vlasov. Of course, Vlasov didn't even finish. He didn't finish stage 20. But nevertheless, talking of teams that we give a hard time, Israel's Stardom Nation, of course, you were very hard on this team in our ranking of the teams beforehand. You said that this team wasn't even adequate to be a World Tour team, let alone an invite team to a Grand Tour. And did they cross your expectations? Did they do anything about your comments, shall we say?
Well, hello, Israel. How are you doing? It's why they even here. I'm sorry. They got a top 10 maybe twice in a sprint stage with one of the Israeli sprinters. And Sepp Formarke was in a breakaway. That's all I remember from this team. James Piccoli was maybe at the head of the race for 10 minutes. That's it. Where were they? Were they back in Israel? I don't know. Bottom bracket, please.
So anyways, moving on to a team that have had a somewhat good history with the Vuelta a España, of course, winning the 2018 edition, team BikeExchange. And yeah, Ewan, did you have much expectations? Of course, there was a Yates in this race, but it wasn't their Yates. They had Michael Matthews, they had Miguel Nieve, they had Damian Hausen, Lucas Hamilton. So certainly a few riders that could achieve anything. But honestly, I don't recall seeing them that much.
No, that's because they weren't really there. I've ended up becoming a bit of a BikeExchange hater over the past year because they ride almost brain-numbingly. They rot away their own young Australian talents. And I'm going to say this is room for improvement. There's a lot of talk about Hamilton and Schultz and so forth being the next big hope. But if they want to get good results, they're going to have to move away. Nevertheless, let's go to a team that had a fairly successful Vuelta a España last year with 2 stage wins from David Gaudu. This is Groupama-FDJ. And well, they weren't really playing with anything. I would say this is also maybe room for improvement, or were they even here? This one's a difficult choice.
Well, as the French expert, or whatever we want to call you, the French lover, probably more like in terms of cycling. And I'll let you have the choice of the next 2 ones, definitely.
You call it because I can't.
Okay, I can't. Well, I think there's definitely room for improvement here. Demar was up there in the sprints, but yeah, they really haven't been the same dominant force that we saw in the sprints as last year. But anyways, moving on to another French team, AG2R Citroën, of course, surprise winners on that stage 20 with the Clermont-Champignon. And Ewan, do you think they've had a good? Well, we also had Jeffrey Bouchard being very vocal at the start of the Vuelta a España, saying that he wanted to go for more top 10 rather than chasing these Mountains jersey classification. I mean, his 14th place didn't light up the GC standings, but they certainly were an attacking force, you have to say.
Yeah, well, I think actually Citroën have had a really good season in terms of their Grand Tours. They're one of the very few teams who have won stages at all three: Curtier, Vendrame, O'Connor, and Champoussin. I would say this has been quite a good race for them. Once again, they have a number of riders within top 20. I'm talking about Clément Champoussin and Geoffrey Bouchard himself. Yes, he couldn't crack top 10, and they weren't really going for the Mountains jersey, but I would say that this is a satisfied Grand Tour for AG2R yet again. Very, very happy for them. Another team that's also won stages at all three Grand Tours, however, Alpecin-Fenix got Jasper Philipsen, I believe, won 2 stages and almost was in that battle for the green jersey for a while. Outside of Jasper Philipsen, we saw Jay Vine try to light things up in the mountains, but I would say this as well is maybe a fringe between high achievers and satisfied.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna give it satisfied, Jay Vine, if he'd taken a stage, potentially high achievers, but we are so used to them being such a force now in the Grand Tours, even though this was only their 3rd Grand Tour as a team. But we expect a lot from Alpecin-Fenix now, and that's courtesy of their own high standards. Anyways, our next team is whatever you want to call it, the pseudo-American Italian squad, Trek-Segafredo. And Giulio Ciccone, of course, was the big rider here in terms of going for GC. We also saw Quinn Simmons almost take a stage win, the newly Toro Valonia champion. And Björn, were you satisfied with their results? They haven't come away with a stage. They've come away with, well, nearly results, you would say.
Well, we did say in our initial ranking that look out for Juan Pedro Lopez and where he's going to finish. And he was in the top 15. So he quietly rode quite a good GC race. But I would say Trek-Segafredo let me down across the board. Quinn Simmons got a top 5 on one of the stages won by Magnus Cort. But Giulio Ciccone was almost invisible in this race. Very disappointing there. So I would say room for improvement for Trek-Segafredo once again this year.
And now we come to one of our favorite teams in terms of the drama aspect, the stories, the narratives, and that is the Netflix Kings. And we presume that their 3rd season will be commissioned after what happened in this year's Vuelta a España. And Ewan, Enric Mas takes his second time on the podium on the 2nd place spot, finishing behind Primoz Roglic, of course, for the first time since 2018. And yeah, this 3-pronged attack had a lot of drama. Valverde crashed out. Miguel Angel Lopez rage quit in the Vuelta. And what do you think of their performance?
Well, for the meme, I'd love to say legendary, because they should have had 2 people on the podium maybe before stage 20's manic stage. But it was interesting to watch. There's never a dull moment with Team Movistar. Enric Mas quietly rode a very good GC, came home in 2nd. They won a stage with Superman in the mountains. So you know what? They did kind of tick every box they were going for. And although we didn't quite see them really control things in the flat as much as other teams, they were still always there. And we were always talking about Movistar. So legendary for sure. LOL.
Okay, that's fine. I was going to say if they had 2, then we could have done it. But yeah, fine. We shouldn't be too conservative either. Anyways, next we come up to one of our favorite teams to mock, but also one of our favorite riders, Guillaume Martin, of course, managed to get his 2nd top 10 of the year. He, of course, won the Masters Jersey classification last year, didn't elect to go for it this year, but a 9th place finish. He was 2nd again in another Grand Tour provisionally, and then kind of fell down the rankings, and we were hoping that he wasn't going to fall outside the top 10, but a career 2nd top 10 for Guillaume Martin. And yeah, I don't know if there's any other results any other time that they caught your attention. Cofidis.
Guillaume Martin. He's had an interesting year, hasn't he? It's not been quite as it's been a better year in terms of the top tens and so forth, but he's quietly got there and done it through breakaways, which is an interesting way of riding. He's changed his focus a lot. I don't think he's going to be like this long term. He says that he took a lot of time out to really focus on GC, but you know what? He's in top 10 again. I would say this is satisfied.
Yeah, I agree. So anyways, now we come to one of the hottest teams right now in terms of form and winning everything, it seems. Bahrain Victorious. And it seems every time Miguel Landa has issues or doesn't quite live up to expectation, his teammates are very much there to take up the gauntlet. And Björn, they won the team classification. They had a rider on the podium. Yeah, even won a stage with Damiano Caruso, and I think I'm missing one stage as well. So what do you think of Bahrain Victorious's phenomenal riding, not to forget Gino Madère as well, taking the white jersey?
I was about to correct you there and say to throw in the white jersey, but I'm sadly not going to raise a white flag with Bahrain Victorious. They were absolutely brilliant over the course of this 3 weeks, especially the ride on stage 20, very memorable. They proved that they can ride without Landa, and now they have many GC riders really in their wings. Legendary for sure for yet another Grand Tour.
So anyways, next we come on to Bora-Hansgrohe, and of course, the big result here was Felix Groschardt now managing to cling on to 10th place. And Björn, what did you think of Bora-Hansgrohe?
Well, I think Bora-Hansgrohe had a very solid race, but Maxi Schachmann let me down. I think Groschardt was animated when he was in second place, but then he felt like he was just holding on for a lot of this race. And Jordi Meus got a couple of top 10s in the sprint, so did Martin Laas. I would say this is satisfied, I would say.
So anyways, next our team is one of the Spanish Pro Continental squads, Caja Rural, and they've gone a long time without a stage win, and they didn't manage to they didn't manage to get that stage win or even trouble the Mountains jersey classification. So Ewan, I would say they weren't even here, to be honest. I can't even recall too much of them other than in the breakaway.
I agree. Full stop, point blank, period T.
And of course, coming to Lotto Soudal, and of course, we talked to Andreas Krohn at the start of the race. But Ewan, did you feel like they were even here? Because I can't recall seeing too much of Lotto Soudal through the whole race.
No, Andreas Krohn got a couple of top 10s, and that was essentially it. Florian Vermees as well, but I would also put them in where they here. They had Harm van Herken and so forth. They could have brought a better squad, and they let me down yet again, proving that they're a one-trick pony almost with Caleb Ewan. I don't think they've taken a stage win.
So anyways, our next team is one of the most interesting teams in terms of the start line we had. They had two Olympic champions with Tom Pidcock and Richard Carapaz, of course, the Giro d'Italia champion as well, Egan Bernal, Ineos Grenadiers, and they even had Adam Yates as well, just to top it up as well. Do you think this star-studded squad lived up to expectations? We thought they were going to be the team that could challenge Roglic.
Well, they did get a top 10 placing with both Yates and Bernal. They wore the polka dot jersey for a couple of days. They took no stage wins yet again at a Grand Tour. It's worrying for Ineos Grenadiers. Pidcock didn't light up the score sheet. Neither did many of their other riders. So I would say it's difficult because they let me down as Ineos Grenadiers, but still 2 people in the top 10 is still fairly impressive. However, Scott, would you say it's satisfied or highly achiever?
No, I would say room for improvement, because considering the budget they have, the superstars they have, and they can't get on the podium, I think it's room for improvement.
Go for it. Have fun with the comment section.
So anyways, our last team is Intermarché-Wanty Group, a team that we thought potentially weren't going to do too much, but they, 2 stints in the red jersey and a stage victory as well from Rai Tarama. And it nearly looked like odd Christian Eichen was going to keep on to a top 10 position. Nevertheless, he wasn't able to do that in the end. And Ewan, where would you rank this team's first year as a World Tour in a Vuelta?
You know what? I would say this is high achiever because they got 2 stints in the red jersey with 2 different riders. They controlled the race very well. They were visible. Louis Meintjes probably would have got a top 10 if he stayed in this. Unfortunately crashed in the final couple of days. He was starting to look very good. Odd Christian Eichen, maybe. He could have got top 10 as well, but he was looking for the red jersey in that kind of performance, as well as the Rhein stage win. It's been a really good race for Wanty, almost under the radar. They were ranked, I think, one of the bottom ones in our preview. So there we go. I think they've become a bit of the superstars of this year's Vuelta a España.
Yep, that is basically, I totally agree with everything you said there. And yeah, that's basically it for this video. Of course, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the like button for this video. And make sure to let us know what you think of our ranking. We always enjoy the comments on the videos. And last but not least, thank you for watching and have a nice day.